Hello, my name is Vikas Pota. The reason why we're organizing this global showcase for World Education Week is we believe that schools have incredible expertise in making sure that learning outcomes improve. Given the state of the world, we want to see the expertise from this particular school being replicated in schools all over our planet so that the world becomes better for everyone. That is why I congratulate this school for what it does and hope that those listening can take away conclusions as to how they should actually approach their own improvement journeys. Thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you in many of the other events this coming week. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for supporting this incredible work, without whom we couldn't have put together this global showcase. Thank you, and I wish you well for this event.
Fast-paced social, economic, and technology-driven change is redefining our world. And having a broad range of skills, such as creativity and problem-solving, has become far more important than being able to memorize information. To redefine how our children learn, and to empower them for the future, parents, teachers, and policymakers must stop overlooking a powerful part of the solution: learning through play. Play is the rocket fuel of child development, and there is a growing body of evidence to support that play is fundamental for children's positive growth and well-being over time. It is also an essential way to foster the skills required to thrive in today's world. The LEGO Foundation aims to build a future in which learning through play empowers children to become creative, engaged, lifelong learners. To do so, we work with a range of partners around the world to change the hearts and minds of all of those who influence children's lives through our programs, research, and advocacy, so they can all embrace the transformative power of play. Examples of what we do include making sure that caregivers, practitioners, and policymakers understand the importance of play, investigating, testing, and scaling new ways to bring play-based learning into homes and schools, using play to help millions of the world's most vulnerable children cope with adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress, or conducting research with some of the world's leading research institutions. Please visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more.
Language connects us all. It's how friendships are formed, ideas are shared, and lessons are learned. Language is how we find understanding and express love. It's how we communicate our successes, both big and small. It lays the groundwork for learning and growth. And for an increasingly diverse student population, it can be the key to achievement in school and beyond. That's why Rosetta Stone Education is dedicated to language and literacy. We offer solutions designed to support teachers and their emergent bilingual students, recognizing and celebrating the knowledge, culture, and languages they bring to our classrooms. Our products are founded on the adaptive blended learning model for individual needs, continuous progress monitoring for better learning outcomes, and culturally responsive pedagogies for more inclusive classrooms. With solutions aligned with proficiency standards, we support language learning while exploring academic subject areas, paving the way to better outcomes. Because for all of us, language is everything.
Dear T4 community, We talk a lot about teachers these days, but we rarely listen to them. Therefore, I am truly excited to join the T4 World Education Week to hear from teachers and school leaders all over the world how we can impact learning together. I'm particularly looking forward to the global showcase. 100 schools sharing their expertise and best practices, I believe, will be a huge motivation for other schools around the globe. I'm equally impressed by the T4 Solutions Challenge, its finalists and their solutions to real-world issues in education. This gives me hope that we can, together, turn around education globally. The Jacobs Foundation is a proud supporter of the T4 World Education Week because we share a vision to reimagine learning and education by bringing together the brightest people who understand how children learn. Let's do this together.
Welcome everybody to Sevenoaks School's T4 World Education Week event. We're so excited and pleased that you have been able to join us this evening, this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are in the world. Our topic is based around nurturing student-led social entrepreneurship whilst deepening community understanding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why we chose this topic shortly. So just to introduce our speakers today, we have a mainly student panel because we really want to focus on the importance of placing students right at the centre of social entrepreneurship education models. So firstly, just to introduce myself, my name is Davison, and I am Director of Service and Social Impact at Sevenoaks School. I'm also a teacher. I have a philosophy background and teach critical thinking and society and change in the school, as well as coaching sports. We have Alex Hall and Alex Potter with us, who are the founders of Footprint Facts, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a minute. We have Gabby Tan, who has set up various initiatives and was a Diana Legacy Award recipient. We're also so pleased to welcome Anya Tanti, who is a co-founder of HIMSA, and Christine Gontarek, who is the founder of Period Equality Together. So we thought it was really important to bring students together with staff in this process so that we can really have a chance to collectively share some ideas we have about promoting student-led social entrepreneurship in schools. So why did we choose the topic? So I think all of us here think that it's really vital to give students a space within school life to respond to social issues that they think are important. In our experience, we've seen that supporting social entrepreneurship in schools can also bring communities much closer together, build mutual understanding, and enable students to see the practical relevance of a lot of their academic subjects. We've actually just finished our Thursday afternoon in Sevenoaks, and walking around campus, it's just such an exciting mix of different projects going on. And amongst those projects, which we'll talk about in a little bit more depth later, students are developing lots of entrepreneurial skills, ranging from sort of communication to planning to marketing to advocacy to evaluation, which we also believe are really valuable skills for all schools to offer students that enable them to have skills that take them into the workplace. We've seen I've been watching quite a few of the other T4 talks, and I can see that lots of schools have recognised the impact of social entrepreneurship education upon wider community wellness and for developing notions of resilience in education. And I think we all agree that these are areas that could not be more relevant during the current pandemic. It's important to say that we don't have a whole host of sort of formal social entrepreneurship teachers in school. So in one way, we'd say maybe we're not a specialist school in social entrepreneurship. However, we have lots of ideas for how schools can promote student-led social entrepreneurship in schools with limited resources through creating a framework for actions and lots of other ideas that we're going to talk a little bit more about today. It's important to say we're in the process of developing this area of school life, which is a significant part of Sevenoaks School. Service is right at the heart of our educational philosophy, which I'll explain a bit more about in a bit. But we're really here to join a conversation about what we can do better, and for this to be the start of collaborative work with other schools that are really interested in developing this field further. So just while we wait for a few more people to join, we thought it'd be great to start with a really sort of practical example of what a social entrepreneurship project might look like that is led by students. So at this point, I'm really excited to introduce Alex Hall and Alex Potter, who are two of our current sixth form students, who have founded the brilliant website footprintfacts.org, which is a website focused on encouraging and facilitating individual carbon footprint reductions. The website achieves these goals through educating their users and allowing them to become more aware of their carbon footprint and the threats of climate change. It's really important to say that the students have genuinely led this whole project themselves. They've led their own education in website design with limited staff support, and they now lead actually their own service project in the school where they have the chance to guide other students in the process in support of their website. So Alex Potter, welcome to this T4 Education Week event. So I'm really interested to know, first of all, what was your motivation to start this project?
Thank you, Ms. Davison. So my main motivation to start the project was the fact that I wanted to reduce my carbon footprint, but I also wasn't really ready to sacrifice major lifestyle changes, such as not flying anymore or eating no meat. So I started to have a look at other smaller actions that I could do that would have an impact on my carbon footprint. And the problem was there was nowhere really online that all of the information I wanted was really collected together, which is part of the kind of motivation for us to create this website in the first place.
So I'm interested to know, with this kind of motivation in mind, what was the starting point? What did you do right at the start of this process? So
at the start, the first thing that I really did back in January was kind of just research and get a feel of what was really missing out in the web right now. And so we realized that there's no real like one place that everyone can have their carbon footprint and all the information that they need. And if you can see me screen sharing now, I'll show you a few parts of our website. So for instance, there's nowhere where you can really compare the carbon footprint of two different actions. So for instance, this is one of the things that we wanted to create, and you can compare your different kind of carbon footprint actions. And we also have a carbon footprint calculator, and all of this is all condensed into one website, which means that we'll be able to make people a lot more aware about their own carbon footprint.
So lots of teachers who are watching will kind of want to know from you as a student, what did the school do that was helpful for the development of this project from your perspective?
So there are two really main things that the school helped us with. The first was the general environment of the school. So this in previous years, we've seen many people who have gone on to create their own service projects, and it's been very successful with the help of the school. And this is very encouraging for us because we know that we will be supported if we come forward with ideas and we'll have guidance. And the second major thing that the school does is that there's a social entrepreneurship competition, which motivates people towards kind of making their ideas a lot better and developing them for the chance of receiving some funding to properly make it a socially impactful kind of a project. And these two main things really helped us, especially to create this website.
So many schools might not be prioritising social entrepreneurship as a key part of their curriculum and might want to learn a little bit more about what you've learned in the process as a student. So what do you feel you've learned through your engagement with this project?
So the main thing that I learned, first of all, is the market research and planning that we really need to do. This wouldn't be possible unless I knew what wasn't out there in the first place for me to be able to change. But the main thing that teachers can do is really just give guidance, give advice for how we could best make this website viable, because it takes a lot of time to do, and it takes a lot of planning and research. But once it's done, it's incredibly satisfying to have finished, and I hope it can make a big impact on people's lives.
It's really exciting to think about where this project might be sort of moving forwards. Thank you so much, Alex. Over to Alex Hall now. I'm just interested to know as well, from your perspective, what was helpful in the sort of school environment for the development of this initiative?
One thing that was really helpful when we were planning the project was all of the advice that the school could give us, and the way they encouraged us to spend more time thinking about planning the project and running workshops with us. Especially during the social entrepreneurship competition, which Alex mentioned, we had several opportunities to sit down with the school and talk through our project before we'd even started coding the website. The other thing the school does, which really helps us, as Ms. Davison said, is run the service afternoon on Thursdays. And we're lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with some younger students on our project, which really gives us the resources to be able to expand our website.
And I'm just wondering, is there anything about the sort of wider environment of the school, sort of beyond the service programme itself or sessions, that was really helpful to just generate a kind of entrepreneurial mindset?
I think, as Alex mentioned, seeing other students before us come up with these projects and talk about them And seeing that this was actually something we could achieve was really, really helpful in helping us see that this was a possibility that we could follow.
And so what do you think lies ahead for Footprint Facts? What do you see the future of this project being?
Well, with Footprint Facts, we're hoping to move into climate change education, which is partly what we do already, but we're looking to coordinate climate change into the GCSE, A-level and pre-GCSE curriculums. For example, we're creating a series of courses, one of which I'm showing here, where students can learn about climate change in an interactive fashion with videos, quizzes, and also using the other tools on our website that Alex showed earlier. And we really hope that this can change the way climate change is taught and make it easier and more possible to teach in schools. And if any schools listening today are interested in this, feel free to email us at info@footprintfacts.org or sign up on our website with the code SEVS as the school code.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I definitely encourage, if any school is interested in learning more about these online courses, you can contact Alex and Alex perhaps via me at Sevenoaks Impact on Twitter would perhaps be the best path for learning more about that brilliant student-led project. So I hope that has really set the background for what we're talking about today. We're talking about how we can build student-led responses to issues that students care about. For those who have just joined the event, a reminder that our topic today is that we are looking to talk about how we can nurture student-led social entrepreneurship whilst deepening community understanding. And we all hope here that this really is the beginning of a conversation between other teachers and us that are interested in this field, rather than us speaking from a point of expertise. For those of you who are on Twitter, you can make comments using the hashtag #WorldEduWeek. And you can also ask us questions via the live Q&A that you should be able to see on your screens. You're also able to follow us in the process with @Sevenoaks Impact, and my handle is @Cat Davison. So do continue to sort of let us know if you want to join in with some of the things we're saying on those various platforms. So I think it's really important to give you all a little bit of background about Sevenoaks School. And it'd be difficult to cover everything that I'd like to tell you about Sevenoaks School, but to give a broad bit of detail, we are a large co-educational day and boarding school for students aged 11 to 18, positioned in Kent in the UK. We have some 1,180 pupils who come from 45 countries across the world, so there's a really international feel to the school. Our Service and Social Impact programme actually began in the 1960s, and we believe that we were one of the first countries in the school to set up a formal school service programme. And it's a programme that we're constantly developing whilst being extremely sort of proud of our history of our programme. So the positioning of social entrepreneurship in the school is a little complex. So we have a service programme every Thursday afternoon that involves about 450 students in 2 hours a week of service. And students have an amazing ability to choose between 40 different projects, which are local, national, international, advocacy-based, social entrepreneurship-based, a whole range of different projects, which we really hope gives students the chance to choose something that really interests them. We also have elements of our service work taking place in clubs. So we run social entrepreneurship clubs for different age groups. We have some curriculum embedded areas of our work, which Gabby is going to talk a little bit about later. And we also run programs that are run on Zoom currently, such as a social entrepreneurship project and a social leadership program as well. But I think one of the main things that we do is just encourage students to lead their own responses to things that they care about. So often I just get an email, quite a few every day actually, from students who just have a tiny idea, often quite a sort of small sort of instinct of something that they want to respond to. And we always make sure as a team with tutors involved as well, that we help students to develop those ideas so that they can move into the type of projects those students really want to lead. It's also important to say that the definition of social entrepreneurship might be seen slightly differently in different schools. So in one sense, with some of our social enterprises that you'll see our students talk about today, it's more of an idea of creating a service or a product to solve a social problem. But I'd say we also see social entrepreneurship as something perhaps less formally defined, as building entrepreneurial skills in students or an entrepreneurial mindset, whereby we want to develop abilities and confidence in things like communication, analysing social problems, evaluating social impact, building theories of change. That I think is a sort of wider skill set that we really believe from talking to students that are valuable to enable them to have support with. So we're going to offer sort of 5 different ideas that we hope will form our 5 takeaways. And I'm going to focus on 2 of them that I feel are particularly important from a teacher's perspective in this field. And then each of our 3 remaining student speakers are going to take a further point each. So the first thing that I feel is really important for schools to put into place when they are running a social entrepreneurship or a service programme is to have a really clear framework for action. So I think it's important to say, just as in science or in history, that I think there are better ways of doing social entrepreneurship projects or leading charitable initiatives. There are some projects that are more impactful than others, and there are some forms of education in this field that are more informed than others. So I think a really important starting point for schools who are starting a social entrepreneurship programme, or maybe schools that are looking to progress what they're currently doing, is to take some time to firstly think about the various sort of frameworks for education that already exist in the school, and then think a bit about how your social entrepreneurship framework for action might fit within those. So just to give some examples, if in your academic framework you have a really big focus on critical thinking, then you might want to really focus on how within a social entrepreneurship context you want to use critical thinking in the analysis of social problems and challenging assumptions that you have about things. If you have a very strong pastoral focus, perhaps on something like generating self-awareness, perhaps that's something you can embed in your service ethos as well. So through talking to lots of staff and lots of students, we settled on 5 kind of practical and maybe ethical principles that lie right at the heart of our service programme. And for us, those are becoming informed. So making sure you take time to understand the issues, conducting research, talking to community members, maybe doing a lot more reading, maybe sort of creating some ideas and testing them with various people, getting different perspectives. We also talk a lot about sustainability and talk to students about economic, social and environmental sustainability as a core point of reflection in their projects. We also have framed one of our key areas of action as thinking about inclusivity, but explain that this is not just about ensuring that you know who you're opening a door to give access to a project to, but how you're really creating your programme or project such that it suits different needs that people might have within a particular community. And actually to take a step back and think, are you actually being inclusive in the way that you are even making the decisions? Is there an inclusive decision-making process? So inclusivity, I think, can be looked at from many different angles. The 4th one is being collaborative in the way that we act. So we try to avoid a notion of kind of doing things for people, but rather believe that sort of mutually beneficial collaborative projects are better for everybody and tend to generate better levels, higher levels of impact too. And the 5th one, which is just sort of threaded throughout everything, is reflection. So ensuring that as we act, we're constantly thinking about what we're doing and challenging things that we might just assume to be the best way of doing something. So it's important in this process, I guess, and this is something that's definitely ongoing within our context, is to ensure that these values or principles are understood by everybody in the school. And I think it's important to say that needs to be a slow process, that change can't happen immediately, especially if there's a sort of shift of understanding in some areas. And linked to this, I think it's also important to ensure that students recognise service or social entrepreneurship as a process rather than an action, and developing models where they can see that they're sort of running from a problem analysis to further research, to developing a theory of change, to acting, to communicating, collaborating, reflecting, that they see that this is all part of a process rather than about a singular action. And I think that helps as well, the process of educational discovery. So moving on to my second area. So the first area was sort of how you go about creating a framework for action. The second one is the importance of leading from student interests and how you can maybe go about cultivating a student-led response in this area or in the school more widely. So I was watching one of the other T4 talks, and I think it was the Green School in New Zealand said that it's important to get a balance between structure and openness. And I'm going to make a similar point that I think you need that structure of the framework for action, but then you need to make students feel that they can generate their own responses and have a certain element of flexibility and openness within that. And I think one of the key ways in which to do this is to ensure that you do sometimes allow students to fail, or that you rather redefine how they consider the concept of failing. Because if you create an environment in a school where you're constantly as staff improving everything they do to make it look professional, then students aren't really being given a real experience of what it's like to run a project. And I think students can learn a lot through seeing that change has to start small. It has to start in this sort of imperfect way, and that actually all change is relatively imperfect in the way it's shaped. So I think it's important to allow students to lead projects that are not sort of totally slick. Second thing, I think, is creating a culture within a school where you do facilitate students on a small scale to lead things that are of interest to them, of course, when they have a good plan that they've made in advance. So I think this is definitely something that has been cultivated by pastoral leaders at Sevenoaks, that students are often the ones that lead their own societies, that they often want to be the ones who are addressing a social issue and having space in assembly to talk about it. So I think it's really important to facilitate students whilst, of course, supporting them. And a really key part of this is giving students a platform. So ensuring that students do feel that they can be the ones on the stage and not always staff talking on the key topics. And I think perhaps when you are having guest speakers or you've got a really formal political debate, if you make sure that there are students actually on the panel as well as maybe students introducing, then that makes students really realise that they're not far away from being someone who could be playing a big role in wider discussions. And they also look up to other students who've been in those positions, and it creates this kind of ripple effect. The sort of last thing on this sort of second topic I want to talk about is the type of relationship you might have between a teacher in this field and the student who is trying to lead their project. And I'd say it's probably more of what you might call a coaching relationship in terms of how I would lead it in the school. So I try to avoid kind of telling students what to do, and rather I ask them questions that enable them to take ownership of their own learning. So, for example, I might ask a student at the start, well, what problem are you trying to address, or what change are you looking to create? What does that look like? I often ask them, what's your motivation for being involved in this? What's really captured your passion? And all those questions are very open-ended and are designed to get students to think through a process that enables them to then develop the project in a way that responds to things in an informed way. So to give another example, if I wanted a student to think a little bit more about how they might analyse their market if they've created a product, instead of telling them how to do market research, I would just send them away to a website that maybe talks about creating surveys and the biases in certain types of survey creation, so that those students again can take ownership of their learning. I think maybe there are times when staff do need to give technical advice to students, but I find that actually they really do. Students are amazing at just going off and finding things out for themselves. And the last thing on this is just sort of, I think one of the Alex mentioned this, is just in being enthusiastic, that when a student sees a staff member is supportive of them and sort of maybe shares a passion in a field, I think that can give them confidence to carry on. And perhaps even if there's a project that you think isn't the best idea, finding something about it that you really agree with or that you find is inspiring will help them have the confidence to persist with their idea rather than kind of give up at the first step. So those were sort of two of the things I think are most important in this process. And I just want to add that I feel I've learned so much from students in this process and definitely position myself as a co-learner rather than an instructor. And I definitely undoubtedly have learned probably most of what I know about society at the moment through the eyes of students. So focusing on the point I've made about giving students a platform, at this point I'm really excited to announce sounds a bit formal, bring into this event our sort of third speaker, who is Gabby Tan, and she's going to focus a little bit about the importance of curriculum integration. So Gabby Tan left Sevenoaks last year and is currently beginning her academic journey at Stanford University, where she is studying Earth Systems and Public Policy. She has dedicated the past few years to advocating for our environment, mental health support and quality education, working with over 15 organisations and initiatives, including the World Oceans Day Advisory Council, Global Schools and our local Sevenoaks Youth Council. Gabby has spoken at TEDx events and as a delegate at the UN Youth Climate Summit. In 2019, we were so proud that Gabby received a Diana Legacy Award in recognition of her dedication to a better future. And you honestly will not find a more committed student. Gabby, I'm so pleased to be able to hand over to you to talk a little bit about your journey and curriculum integration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davison. So throughout my journey juggling life as a student activist, or also known to most of my teachers as a part-time student and a full-time activist, I've been lucky to have great mentors and teachers to help guide me, especially as I was just starting out. They broke down big issues and taught them in a way that avoided the alarmism of the news and our social media feeds, helping me realize that there are definitely still things that can be done to fix our most pressing issues. It was also really helpful when my teachers showed me the different ways to create change on all scales and not just through big global actions. By introducing me to ways I could start within my school and local communities, it opened my eyes to the unique skills and qualities I have as a young person who's passionate about making a difference, and helped me develop the confidence needed to use my voice as a force for change. In fact, my environmental advocacy journey began after a geography field trip to a coral reef nursery in Malaysia, where I learned about the impacts of the climate crisis and pollution on coastal communities and our environment. I wouldn't stop talking about the coral reefs and plastic pollution in class, so my teachers helped me channel my fear into writing what turned out to be my very first speech about ocean conservation. Since then, I've had the most amazing journey working on campaigns, speaking to people at schools and conferences around the world, leading initiatives and lobbying politicians with organizations like the Sevenoaks Youth Council, and supporting refugee education through my youth-led project, Horizon of Hope. Our future is going to be defined by big problems like climate change, and we're going to need collective action to overcome them. So I think it's really important that schools teach us about these issues and the different ways to create change in order to best empower us to be global citizens and advocates for our futures. At Sevenoaks, through the Society and Change curriculum, students are introduced to an exploration of society and concepts of change from the start of their school journey in Year 7. Throughout the course, students learn about issues like climate change and plastic pollution, and think about the ways they can create change on varying levels, whether on an individual scale through their consumer choices or through advocating for change in their local community. The course encourages students to think more critically about things like responsibility, power, and justice. One of the main goals of the course is to inspire the youngest students in the school to explore their roles in building a better future. So the sessions contain many references to real-life examples of what like-minded young people are doing around the world. Last year, I had the honor of sharing my story about how I got involved with climate advocacy, and it was so inspiring to hear about all the ideas they had for a better world and feel the excitement they had about what they could do to help. A year later, as Year 8 students, they enter into a program focused on developing skills in social entrepreneurship through identifying problems that they care about and developing a small-scale product or service that enables them to raise funds for charities working on these problems. Service education continues as a core theme throughout all year groups, with students engaging in critical thinking as a compulsory subject, which enables them to further examine topics related to social justice. I joined Sevenoaks as a sixth former and loved being able to continue my work and explore new projects with the support of my friends and teachers. In particular, through the IB, I loved using every coursework opportunity to learn more about environmental issues. For instance, I wrote an essay about intergenerational justice and responsibility in philosophy, attempted to model the climate impact of the most polluting countries in maths, and wrote an economics extended essay about the impact of plastic bag fees. On a related note, I would love to tell you about the Teach the Future campaign that is jointly run by the UK Student Climate Network and Students Organising for Sustainability. While I was in the UK in February, I had the honour of joining 50 students in Parliament to launch the first ever youth written bill. The Climate Emergency Education Bill demands that the government repurposes and reforms the education system into one that will prepare us to face the climate emergency and ecological crises. Should the bill become legislation, it would obligate English education providers across all levels to teach the climate crisis, provide funding for the training of teachers, development of new resources, and youth-led environmental justice action throughout all schools and universities. And it would also require all educational buildings to be net zero by 2030. Similarly, I've also worked as an advocate for the Global Schools program on empowering schools and teachers globally to teach and implement the SDGs, and have most recently been working on an environmental education initiative to help provide youth in Malaysia with the knowledge, resources, and skills needed to turn ideas into projects and campaigns. All in all, I think schools have a huge role in inspiring action and empowering us to become advocates for change. I look forward to seeing how schools across the world continue to teach, integrate, and implement the SDGs.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I think it's really clear listening to you that not only do schools play a huge role in inspiring community action, but I think students also do. And I think I've learned so much from you across the last 2 years, and that we can all do more as teachers, I think, to spend time listening to students in the process of curriculum design and engaging them with, engaging on them on their knowledge of topics, and also to ensure that curriculum design is relevant to their context and the relevance they see for their own education. So thank you so much, Gabby, for taking the time to share a little bit of your journey and some arguments there focused on the importance of curriculum integration. I think it's important to say that there may be some foundation elements to social entrepreneurship which are really helpful to have integrated into the curriculum and taught as a more sort of formal academic, in a formal academic environment. And I found that social entrepreneurship is a truly cross-curricular subject that enables students to apply learning in all subjects to real-life contexts. At this point, I'm really excited to introduce our second student speaker, or actually our fourth student speaker, second in this section. And this is Anya Tanti, who is going to be speaking a little bit about the importance of a community-centered approach to social entrepreneurship. So Anya also left Sevenoaks School in 2020 and is an incoming freshman at the University of California. She was particularly inspired by her volunteer work at the Asha Kiran Convent in Pune, India, where she lives, and she co-founded Ahimsa, a non-profit social enterprise focused on bringing personal, social and health education to the underprivileged youth of India through illustrated children's books. The books are titled Alicia's Adventures, and they're really beautiful, and she has written and published 2 books now called Behaviour and Manners and Puberty, and has distributed them in India and Ghana through partnerships created with a number of NGOs and schools. Anya, I'm going to hand over to you. Welcome to this T4 Education Week event.
So the main thing I want to emphasize is the importance of ensuring that students start their service project with a focus on understanding the community need, and that teachers themselves enable students to directly engage with and learn from community members in the process. Certainly, my project kept the community in mind. At the start, I simply wanted to fundraise for the Asha Kiran Convent in Pune, India. However, slowly I began to think, why am I even doing this? Through this, I realized simply fundraising was not enough. Eventually, through my experience teaching at the convent, I realized that although the convent and other NGOs were focused on teaching the children inside the classroom, nothing was being done to help them outside the class on topics such as behavior and puberty. I discussed what I believed with the sisters, who confirmed this, and after discussions with Sevenoaks teachers, we realized the real barrier to the children's long-term academic and personal success, the lack of personal social health education. With the help of the community, I had finally found our niche, and through this, Ahimsa was born, which creates illustrated PSHE's children's storybooks. After this, it was really important to stay in touch with the convent and other NGOs to ensure that A, there was a need for our product, and B, that it was curated for our audience. We made sure to use simple English with interactive storylines, as well as an Indian illustrator so that the children could relate to the books. To measure our impact, we conducted interviews with the children at the convent and noticed positive changes in their behavior. And my relationship with the convent also helped with market analysis for my second book, as the sisters themselves told me that there was a need for a puberty book that addressed the emotional changes that teenagers experience. Through all of this, I have realized that Ahimsa is not the product of a partnership. Rather, it is the product of a collective effort of a community working towards a common goal. It was through discussions with the sisters at the convent and teachers at Sevenoaks School that we were able to identify the need for PSHE. Through calls with PSHE experts that we could develop the content for our book. And through guidance from Sevenoaks teachers that we could work on our marketing and finance. My experience with Ahimsa also sheds light on the importance of change being led by the community itself. In this case, it was the NGOs I worked with, the convent, and the children themselves. It's important to not hold a savior complex where you retain all the power and instead foster a partnership, as this allows the work you're doing to continue even after you are no longer in the picture. In Sevenoaks, we are asked to think about who has the power in the decisions we make and are introduced to post-colonial scholarship. This is particularly important to consider in countries with a historical colonial past, as leading the change with any Western priority in decision-making can lead to historical power imbalances. As a school community, we focus on building long-term relationships with communities and look for ways to allow the communities themselves to lead the project, rather than vice versa. Exploring some of our global partnerships include Donovan from South Africa. He worked alongside our students in art classes for 2 weeks, after which the students went to meet his community and work with him in his new studio. Similarly, our EduSpot service group worked remotely for a year under the guidance of Stephen, a Ghanaian literacy trainer, to produce Ghanaian-specific literacy resources. In both these cases, the students were able to learn directly from Donovan and Stephen, rather than entering through a purely helping mindset, with the agenda for change clearly set by the community partners themselves. Sevenoaks also makes sure to give students a platform to speak at every possible opportunity through panel events, where students get to raise awareness about their cause, network, and speak to other well-established charities. Most importantly, learning stories about other student-led initiatives inspires you and opens your eyes to new possibilities that you had not considered before. For example, I personally spoke at the Global Education Week and the Sevenoaks Service and Community Action Conference. Through this, I was given the platform to share my ideas, gain experience of taking questions from an audience. Through Ahimsa, I've realized that I can create change, even if it is just one PSHE book at a time. More importantly, Ahimsa has taught me the importance of change being led by the community itself, and I urge you to encourage your students to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anya. Your story of Ahimsa is so inspiring, and we're really looking forward to seeing it develop further in the months and years ahead. And I've loved, as a teacher, seeing how closely you've worked with Indian teachers in the process to identify needs and also gain feedback from the communities as well after your books were sent over to some of the schools. I think it's also important to say, as a teacher, that I think we all have a responsibility in the process of service projects and mentoring relationships with students to often take a step back to think about how our knowledge is produced and to check any sort of assumptions we're making about our knowledge of particular issues in communities, whether in the local, national or international context. I think there are lots of biases in the way that we view things, and it's really important that we don't impose a narrative that we might have from our particular context onto a particular project. And I think if teachers, as much as students, can show this and take time to listen, then that's sort of good role modelling on this front for students, not to form assumptions readily about projects and about needs. So I really believe strongly this is something that teachers should consider, and that I'm constantly reflecting on myself that I need to keep working on. So I'm really happy to, at this point, be able to introduce our final student speaker, who is going to be focusing a little bit on the importance of taking a partnership-based approach to service and also sharing a little bit about her social enterprise. So Christiane Gonterick is also a current sixth form student at Sevenoaks School, and she founded Period Equality Together, otherwise known as PET, to address the period poverty and stigma that she saw in her local community. PET enables students to subscribe to a weekly delivery of eco-friendly period products and self-care items, with profits raised to support Bloody Good Period, who are a charity that partner with drop-in centres for asylum seekers and refugees around the country. In 2020, this year, we were delighted that she won the National Business for Good Award as part of the Peter Jones Foundation's Social Enterprise Competition. Christiane, welcome to the T4 event, and over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Davison. A few years ago, I was shocked to read in a BBC article that girls in the UK regularly have to miss school as they cannot afford period products. The widespread prevalence of period poverty is appalling. 1 in 10 girls in the UK do not have adequate access to period products. No one was talking about this problem due to the stigma around periods. I knew I had to do something about this, but most importantly, I knew I had to work with my peers to achieve this. In September of Year 12, after being given a space to work on a service project at my school during allocated service times, I founded Period Equality Together, PET for short, a period care subscription service in the form of a social enterprise. Subscribers within my school community receive a monthly box containing eco-friendly period products, self-care items, and empowering notes, with £2 raised per box to support refugees and asylum seekers across the UK with essential period products. Initially, I struggled in setting up my social enterprise, as I felt like I was the sole driver for my project in my community. Founding a social enterprise at the age of 16 felt extremely daunting. However, I quickly learned that this did not need to be the case, as it was crucial for me to create an inclusive community to motivate my peers and students and partnership with other organizations. If I wanted to have a sustainable impact, I would need a team of like-minded students to join and support me. I started by setting up a period chapter in association with thousands of high school chapters across the world, creating a space of advocacy right in my school. This further gave me a support system to ask questions from experienced chapter leaders who are acknowledged in this field. Our chapter now includes 15 students who work collaboratively to achieve our goals, with allocated teams working on specific goals. From there, I partnered in my school's social entrepreneurship competition, and now Kent-wide competition, as well as the Kent Social Leadership Programme, to learn entrepreneurial skills and establish connections with similar students of similar interest. The entrepreneurship competition brings together like-minded students who are motivated by social problems across my school and at other schools to enter a student-led social entrepreneurship competition. The programme not only gives crucial support to students like me to create an idea for change and develop it with mentoring, but also gave the chance to, at the end, to have a pitch live with external judges. The complete process enabled me to improve my idea and gave me the confidence to implement PET, as I had a team of students supporting me as I too supported them. The Kent Social Leadership Programme, now unfortunately held on Zoom, enables students from different schools in the area to learn together about vital topics of social impact, such as understanding social problems, as well as gaining skills to work together on plans for change and measurements of social impact. Different speakers lead the sessions each week, exposing students to a diverse range of approaches and methods for change, as well as learning skills of public speaking. Furthermore, I was given the space and time to implement my idea during my school's service programme. Every Thursday, I had 2 hours to work on my idea alongside my peers and teachers. The programme works together alongside over 40 local, national and international community partners. And during COVID, we as a school have realised that it's more important than ever that we emphasise the partnership approach, as understanding what each of our partners is looking for and for change and to contribute is crucial. Finally, I've created partnerships with major organisations and activists such as Rosetta, the Eve Appeal, Bloody Good Period and Laurie Corrigan, to launch petitions to urge the UK government and to support underfunded female charities. I am now part of a community of motivated, impacted and driven students, which is bigger than myself. Looking back at my journey since launching PET, I am extremely proud to have supported 600 women with 12,000 pads. However, to me, my most important impact has been creating a community for other menstrual activists to join and grow from. In fighting period stigma through PET's fight against period poverty, I have learned the importance of partnership-based approaches, as we all have to together fight period stigma. I urge teachers in and around the world listening in this conference to nurture this partnership and community approach through service programs and competitions, which I've mentioned, to give a chance for every student to fully flourish. Thank you.
Thank you, Christiane, so much for sharing those thoughts. And just want to sort of add that even the social entrepreneurship programme that several of our students have mentioned tonight is actually also run in itself by students. So even within more sort of formal programmes that are run by the school year on year, we try to ensure that student leadership is right at the heart of those initiatives. And I'm very happy to talk a little bit more about the structure of how we run the various different programmes that we have. For anyone who wants to get in touch, which you can do so on Twitter on the handle Sevenoaks Impact. So at this point, I'm really excited that we have a bit of time to answer some questions. So I hope that all of you feel really comfortable to throw some questions for myself or any of the brilliant students here into the Q&A box. So hopefully you're able to see on your Teams function a Q&A function, you're able to type some questions in. Okay, so the first question I'm going to turn to Anya. This is one for you. So one person's just really interested to know whether your engagement in this project has changed your journey at all in your life. Is engagement in Ahimsa led to a sort of change in your journey in any sense? And if so, how?
Sure, that's a very interesting question, and I think it certainly has. I'm about to start a new experience. I'm currently at college, and through AHIMSA, I've realized that whatever work I do, whether that's in business or in something related to medicine, I definitely want to have a social impact, and I know that it is possible to do that. So I think AHIMSA certainly, while it's taught me a lot of skills and helped me connect with the community, it's also taught me that I would like to continue social impact throughout my career and definitely at university as well.
So also just following up on that, I'm going to ask a sort of slightly similar question to Christiane, that I think some people seeing what you are all doing would assume that you are the kind of students who are really wanting to build a career perhaps in social entrepreneurship. So I'm just interested to know, maybe you would all have different responses to this, but Christiane, do you think that this is something you really want to form as your sort of major life focus and career, or is it an area that you're really just passionate about and wanted to develop in order to perhaps build skills in areas?
Yes, of course. I think when I first started PET, it was definitely something I was just really passionate about. I've always been interested in politics, and that's why I always assumed I would be following at university. However, now having started and really implemented my idea and gained a lot of success through it, I really believe that when whatever I do, I really want to involve social impact. And I hope to in the future study women's policy at university so that I can carry on in whatever I do, even if that is politics, to help improve women's lives across the world, and also emphasizing the need for increasing women's reproductive rights around the world. And I think that's definitely something which PET has made me more informed about and more passionate about, and that in a sense has made me really want to focus and develop this when I go to university and hopefully as a job career in the future.
Amazing. So just to sort of focus in, Christiane, just following up on that, what do you think are the, if you were going to name sort of 3 areas where your learning has been most significant through this Period Equality Together project, what would you say those 3 areas of learning have been?
Yes, of course. I think the first thing when I started my project was I didn't really realise the wide prevalence of period poverty, and I think it's quite rather ignorant but really a widespread thing that's happening in the UK, where people do not realise that a lot of women and girls in the UK experience period poverty. So I think one thing I've definitely learned is that to realise that we can also focus on the problems within our own countries, and that no country, no matter how developed it is perfect, and that we constantly need to improve our social structures so that we can look after all our citizens. So that's probably the first thing I would say that I've learned. I've probably also learned the power of working together with a community. I definitely at the beginning was just by myself trying to implement this idea. However, really quickly, as I explained before, I found a group of students who were as like-minded and as passionate as I was. And this made me realize how much more we can work together and create change as we work together. So for example, I met a girl in the year below who was an amazing graphic designer, and I never knew this, and so we became really good friends, and she has helped graphic design some of our logos and some of our Instagram posts, and that has been a really great partnership and helped me learn some graphic design skills and her some social entrepreneurial skills. And I would say finally the last thing I've learned is the power of public speaking, as we're doing right now, because beforehand I was definitely a very scared person in public speaking. I was very passionate about my idea, but would speak really fast and just, really didn't know how to emphasize and articulate my points correctly. And definitely social entrepreneurship has taught me how to be concise and be persuasive with my points, as well as just general public speaking, which I hope to carry on in my future careers and future university.
Gabby, so I've got a question here that I think you would answer particularly well. So I think something Christiane has mentioned is the importance of the value to her of kind of team building and creating networks, which I've definitely found myself as a teacher. I'm involved in a few networks myself, and I feel they've really given me a sort of constant injection of sort of inspiration from other people who are similar. You are involved in quite a few different networks. How did you become involved in them, and how can schools support students connecting with other like-minded students?
Yeah, so I think the main way I got involved with these networks was it all stemmed from like starting within my local community and starting small, like not really aiming. I think just focusing on like what you can do and within your local community. And then as I got more involved with my local community, I got to work with more teams, and like gradually, I guess the networks just grew. And
Thanks, Gabby. I've got one here that I'm going to direct towards Alex Potter. So you and other students here are obviously very motivated and enthused about these projects, but I'm sure there are many students who are perhaps less interested in running a project like this. Can you maybe explain what is it that's made you so motivated, and is it something you think other students would benefit from?
Well, I think what you have to focus on is making sure that the social impact is relevant to you and that you're really passionate about it. Because for me, it started with wanting to find a solution to one of my problems. So it was directly related to what I wanted to do. But if you're doing it for the sake of doing it, then it will be kind of hard to keep motivation up. So I think just if you find an idea that you think is worth like going on with, then you'll have a much better chance of staying motivated.
And just the same question quickly to you, Alex Hall. Anything that you would sort of say on why some students are perhaps maybe even have these opportunities but are less motivated to have that sense of self-direction in the process?
I think it's also important to create your idea on a platform that you enjoy, because, for example, with Alex and I, we created a website, and that's been something that we've got really into. We've got involved in the code, which is not really related to climate change, but it's something that we're both separately interested in. So I think it's important to have the whole process as something that you can enjoy, so that you enjoy the process as well as the product.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think students can be encouraged to enjoy that process and see the value of the process more? Sometimes I see students, they want to see the impressive outcome, they want to deliver impact at scale, and they're not always ready for the starting point.
I think it's important to get engaged with the community that you're helping or that you're interacting with from the very start. Even if it's something that's quite disconnected from the community, like a website, you can contact your users, you can use social media, and then even on a very small scale, you can get in contact with people. So for example, before our website started, we were in contact with some of our followers on social media, and they were giving us advice and things that they wanted to see on our website, and that was very inspiring.
Okay, I think those are all the questions we sadly have time for. So at this point, I'm going to just re-emphasize the key 5 takeaways that we'd like to put forward as a result of this session. But again, I just want to emphasize that we'd really love people to get in touch and be able to join us in this conversation in the future. So the 5 key takeaways that I think have been hopefully examined throughout this talk are firstly the importance of creating a framework for action. So by that I spoke a little bit about how students need to be given a structure within which to act. And I think schools need to think in their own different ways, and this will be have a different sort of form in different schools about the key things that they want students to reflect upon in the process of social entrepreneurship projects. So in our case, this was thinking about becoming more informed, sustainability, inclusivity, collaborative action and reflection itself. The second point was the importance of enabling student-led responses, and we've spoken a little bit, and I hope you can see through the students today, the importance of giving students a platform and the facilitation to be able to lead their own responses to things. And we often find that students can be more motivated when they are responding to an issue that particularly matters to them, and that they are enabled to have a certain level of choice in their particular service or social entrepreneurship projects. So also in the process of mentoring, we spoke a little bit about asking questions that enable students to direct their own learning. Thirdly, Gabby spoke brilliantly about the importance of embedding understanding within curriculums. I think that academic subjects all interlink with social entrepreneurship concepts in different ways. And the more that we can build an understanding that actually our education in its fullest sense is a preparation for the outside world and hopefully students to make a positive contribution to society as citizens, then it's important that there's a complete sort of understanding of how social entrepreneurship fits with different elements of the curriculum. Fourthly, Anya spoke about the importance of community-centered change, of not making assumptions about what is important for a particular community or assumptions about the particular areas of change that might be important to them. So we always try to start with a examination of the issue with the community being the main decision maker in a particular project. And this links to our fifth point, which is the importance of having a partnership-based mindset. And by this, we mean that there's huge value, as seen through the T4 education event today, of working alongside other people in education, and particularly in the topic of service or social entrepreneurship. We really promote the idea that we want to be working with people and collectively create solutions to issues rather than be doing things for people, as we believe if we work together, we can build a collective future that is valuable for all and is based in a way that understands everybody's sort of judgments on particular issues. So we really feel that that one is particularly important. So at this point, we have come to the end of the T4 World Education Week event. At this point, I really want to thank quite a lot of people involved in this. So I want to say a huge thank you to all the students for giving up their time to share their thoughts. So Alex, Gabby, Anya and Christiane, thank you not only for giving your time today, but for constantly giving your time to offer advice to me and other teachers on how we can do better. And I think, again, it's important to say that we are definitely in a process and are looking to improve what we do in different ways, and would love to receive any feedback from anybody watching this. We would also like to thank all our local, national and international community partners for their support in collaborating with us throughout our social entrepreneurship programme. I'd like to thank the school marketing team, particularly Siobhan and Rebecca, for their enormous amounts of support, and to James Rattigan, who's been our producer today. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the school. So this is not last. I'd like to thank Sevenoaks School and the headmaster for giving us this opportunity. And last but not least, T4 Education and Vikas Potas for giving us this platform to share some ideas that we hope have started a conversation in different ways. You can follow us on @Sevenoaks Impact to receive more sort of updates about what we do, and also do see the websites from various student projects below that I know that they would love for you to take a look at. So for now, it's goodbye from me and from the Sevenoaks School. I'm wishing you a really good evening, and a huge thank you to all of you once again for taking the time to join us for this session. Thank you and good night.
Hello, my name is Vikas Pota. The reason why we're organizing this global showcase for World Education Week is we believe that schools have incredible expertise in making sure that learning outcomes improve. Given the state of the world, we want to see the expertise from this particular school being replicated in schools all over our planet so that the world becomes better for everyone. That is why I congratulate this school for what it does, and hope that those listening can take away conclusions as to how they should actually approach their own improvement journeys. Thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you in many of the other events this coming week. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for supporting this incredible work, without whom we couldn't have put together this global showcase. Thank you, and I wish you well for this event.
Fast-paced social, economic and technology-driven change is redefining our world. And having a broad range of skills such as creativity and problem solving has become far more important than being able to memorize information. To redefine how our children learn and to empower them for the future, parents, teachers and policymakers must stop overlooking a powerful part of the solution: learning through play. Play is the rocket fuel of child development, and there is a growing body of evidence to support that play is fundamental for children's positive growth and well-being over time. It is also an essential way to foster the skills required to thrive in today's world. The LEGO Foundation aims to build a future in which learning through play empowers children to become creative, engaged, lifelong learners. To do so, we work with a range of partners around the world to change the hearts and minds of all of those who influence children's lives through our programs, research and advocacy, so they can all embrace the transformative power of play. Examples of what we do include making sure that caregivers, practitioners and policymakers understand the importance of play, investigating, testing and scaling new ways to bring play-based learning into homes and schools, using play to help millions of the world's most vulnerable children cope with adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress, or conducting research with some of the world's leading research institutions. Please visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more.
Language connects us all. It's how friendships are formed, ideas are shared, and lessons are learned. Language is how we find understanding and express love. It's how we communicate our successes, both big and small. It lays the groundwork for learning and growth. And for an increasingly diverse student population, it can be the key to achievement in school and beyond. That's why Rosetta Stone Education is dedicated to language and literacy. We offer solutions designed to support teachers and their emergent bilingual students, recognizing and celebrating the knowledge, culture, and languages they bring to our classrooms. Our products are founded on the adaptive blended learning model for individual needs, continuous progress monitoring for better learning outcomes, and culturally responsive pedagogies for more inclusive classrooms. With solutions aligned with proficiency standards, we support language learning while exploring academic subject areas, paving the way to better outcomes. Because for all of us, language is everything.
Dear T4 community, we talk a lot about teachers these days, but we rarely listen to them. Therefore, I am truly excited to join the T4 World Education Week to hear from teachers and school leaders all over the world how we can impact learning together. I'm particularly looking forward to the global showcase. 100 schools sharing their expertise and best practices, I believe, will be a huge motivation for other schools around the globe. I'm equally impressed by the T4 Solutions Challenge, its finalists and their solutions to real-world issues in education. This gives me hope that we can, together, turn around education globally. The Jacobs Foundation is a proud supporter of the T4 World Education Week because we share a vision to reimagine learning and education by bringing together the brightest people who understand how children learn. Let's do this together.